Okay, welcome back to another episode of Third and 23. I'm your host, Alex, here to talk college football, picks, predictions, big games of the weekend, which way I'm leaning, and so forth. So, if you've tuned in before, you know that you'll see a couple changes. I've got the games that I'm going to discuss here in the middle of the screen. As you see, we have a few more games as we get more into the meat of the season, more games to do, better matchups to do, and so forth. But I'm also showing what the spreads were. These are the spreads early in the week, and then I'm going to update here real time to see how they change, give you an idea of how the spread has moved, how the line has moved, and so forth. I'm also doing away with my pick of the week because I'm already going with that in my against the spread record, so it didn't really make any sense to do that. So without further ado, getting into it, we're going to talk Florida State at Clemson. It's a noon game. Florida State's favored by 2 early in the week. They're still favored by 2. That line hasn't moved. Before the season started, if you remember, I said that I picked Florida State to finish atop the ACC regular season standings. Then I had them facing Clemson in a rematch in the ACC championship game where I picked Clemson to win that rematch and win the ACC title. My reason behind that was that I thought Florida State would have been too explosive offensively for early in the season, for an early season game against Clemson, where Cade Klubnik, the quarterback for Clemson, wouldn't really be able to go blow for blow, so to speak, with Jordan Travis in that Florida State offense, right? I thought Cade Klubnik would have grown as the season went on, and then by the time we get to the ACC championship game, he'd be a different quarterback and somebody who could win that game for them. That was how I thought the season would go in the preseason. Now here we are in week 4, and you got a Florida State team coming off a really, really sloppy win against Boston College. You know what? I don't even want to say sloppy, just a really tight and just unexpected win against a bad Boston College team. They beat BC 31-29, and BC had lost to Northern Illinois, had barely beaten Holy Cross. This is a bad team, you know, and it was in Boston College, but to barely win that game, the only reason they won is because BC had 18 penalties in that game, and they actually lost the game on a penalty. It was pretty embarrassing for BC because they really had a chance to pull off what would have been a monumental upset. And in that game, I saw first what I said in the preseason. I've always said that Florida State defense can be had. That Florida State defense is not. This isn't the '90s, man. The Florida State defense isn't back. Like I know people want to say Florida State is back because their ranking and all of that. That Florida State defense is not back. You can run the ball on them. You can throw the ball on them. They let the BC quarterback get like 400 yards of total offense against them. This dude didn't do that kind of work at all this season. He hit him off for that. So and something else I noticed in that game, man, that Florida State defense wasn't looking tough. The BC running backs were getting out tough, grind out yards. And the reason I say that, I bring that up as a point, is because the Clemson running game with Will Shipley and Phil Maffa, these are strong, powerful backs who are much more explosive than those guys from BC. These guys can move the ball on them on the ground. Dabo Swinney has to give the Clemson running game the opportunity to move the ball. Sometimes I think he gets away from that. But these guys can move the ball. These guys can break tackles against this Florida State front seven. And that Clemson offensive line can definitely open some holes against that Florida State front seven. In the secondary, when it comes to Cade Klubnik passing the ball, he started to look much more confident last week. I know the opponent and all of that. They went against FAU, right? So yeah, it's the opponent, but he was looking much more confident. He was starting to go down the field more. He was starting to look like a QB who was gonna evolve into something. This early in the season, I don't know yet. Florida State, on the other hand, you still got Jordan Travis, Keon Coleman, Johnny Wilson connection. That's an explosive connection right there. Though that quarterback receiver connection for Clemson is going to be a problem. I had issues with Clemson in their secondary all in the preseason. I thought that they weren't that great, that weren't impressive. As the season started, they've looked okay, but I still don't believe I'm still not a big believer in them. Andrew Makuba, their best defensive back, the safety, he missed last game, and he may play in this one, and I think they're going to need him in this one to help out against that Florida State uh, passing game. But the biggest thing for me, I know Florida State struggled last week, but they were going against I think they were looking ahead. This is a look ahead as a part of college football. I think they were looking ahead. I think they're gonna be much crisper in this game, but I saw some warts on that Florida State defense that I think Clemson is good enough to exploit. Clemson has won, I think, 8 in a row in this series, and I think that's or 7 in a row in this series, and I think it's about to continue. I think it's actually I'm going against what I said in the preseason. I'm actually going Clemson, straight up money line. And I'm doing this game too, so this is an against the spread pick. I'm going Clemson in this one. All right, let's move along to Rutgers and Michigan. This opened at 24. It's still 24. I think this is Michigan's last game without Jim Harbaugh coaching. They haven't needed him because they've had a really, really weak schedule. They beat ECU, UNLV, and Bowling Green. Each game, they got over 30. For me, it's kind of interesting that they didn't get more than 30. That doesn't seem like a big deal to some, but against like UNLV and Bowling Green, you got to drop like 50s on these teams if you're an explosive offense. And they didn't, and some of the reason behind that is JJ McCarthy didn't have the crisp performance in that one. Picks in the end zone, they had a fumbled kickoff, sloppy performance. Just wasn't really hitting off Bowling Green like he should have. Rutgers is coming off a win against Virginia Tech where they really dominated 35-16. And Rutgers it's easy to kind of look at Rutgers and see what they are. They're a team that can't pass the ball effectively, but they can run the ball. They're a team that can really kind of, I don't want to say sells out to stop the run, but they're really good against the run, but you could pass the ball on them. So when it comes to this game, I'm going Michigan in this game at home, no doubt about it. But I'm giving up 24 though. That's one where I'm like, I don't know if I'm gonna give up 24 at home because this is a game. They beat Bowling Green by 25 last week. They beat UNLV by 28. They beat ECU by 27. I could see this 31-10, and then you lose. So this isn't a game that I'm going to do against the spread. I'm staying away from this one. But as far as overall, money line, if you want to call it, I'm taking Michigan straight up. Take a look at Auburn, Texas A&M. So Texas A&M is an 8-point favorite in this game. This spread has actually creeped up to 9 now. Let's go ahead and update that. This spread is now 9. And I understand why it would creep up to 9. Let's talk about Auburn. Auburn has been a very sloppy team this season. Turnovers. These guys turn over the ball a lot, man. They turned the ball over 3 times last week against Samford. They turned the ball over 4 times the week before against Cal. Peyton Thorne, isn't the guy he's about to go in and light up Texas A&M in College Station. He's not that guy who's going to do that. The running game, the running game really didn't get off last week against Samford as you expected they would. Against Cal, I mean, these guys this isn't an explosive offense. They're going against a Texas A&M team. Now, I know I called it wrong with Texas A&M against Miami. Well, I'm going to give them another shot because this Texas A&M team is much better than Auburn. They're much better, in my opinion, than 9 points than Auburn. That's why I understand why the spread has been bet up, because it makes sense to me. They crushed UL Monroe last week. Connor Wegman looked great. He was sharp. It's UL Monroe, so that game shouldn't really matter. But the thing that you wanted to see is that they would be sharp. You wanted to see that they looked like they did work on something in practice to improve upon that awful performance against Miami. This is a game where 9 points. I don't care about the 9. Like I'm laying that. I'm doing this game against the spread. Oops. I'm doing this game against the spread, and Oh, good grief. Sorry about that. Trying to copy this. We'll just copy it from here. I'm doing this game against the spread, and I'm taking Texas A&M. So this is the second spread game that I'll be doing. So far, we've got Clemson money line, and we got Texas A&M covering the 9. Now let's move on to Colorado at Oregon. Colorado is like America's darling, right? Everybody's talking Colorado this year. If you've heard me say it a lot of times, I'm a big fan of Coach Prime. Really like what Colorado's been doing this year. I thought they would have covered against TCU. I didn't pick them straight up in the opener, but I thought they would have covered. So you guys would have hit on that if you listened to me. I thought they would have covered against Nebraska. I couldn't believe they were just a 2.5 point favorite in that one. They crushed Nebraska. Colorado State game, I said stay away. Stayed away. They only won by 8, right? And they were a big favorite. But now here we go at Oregon, where they're a 21-point dog. Without Travis Hunter, which is a big loss because he is an explosive player on both sides of the ball. But Colorado has some other guys. I've talked about Xavier Weaver several times already. Nobody's talking about him, but this guy's doing work. This guy, it's like every game, this guy's getting, just making plays downfield, making big grabs. And just helping out Shedeur Sanders, giving him another weapon to work with. I think in this game, Shedeur is good enough to put up some points with these Colorado receivers. I think the Colorado lack of a running game is going to finally show up, though, in this one. I think that Oregon is a team where with Bo Nix, these guys are crisp with their passing game. They got some guys who can fly at wideout, too. So without, Travis Hunter back there, I think Bo Nix is going to hit off Colorado for quite a bit in the passing game. And with Colorado not having a running game to keep Bo Nix on the sideline, I think it's going to hurt. Now, 21 points is the big question here because I'm taking Oregon in this one straight up. 21 points, I don't know if Colorado is going to go in here and get blasted like that. I definitely wouldn't take Oregon and lay to 21. I'm not so confident, though, that in taking Colorado with the plus 21. So this is a game that I'm going to stay away from. I don't know if they're going to go in there and get blasted. I don't think they have a running game. Sorry about that. I dropped something. I don't think they have a running game that's going to be able to contend with Oregon. I think Oregon does have a type of team where they can put up a lot of points in this game. Colorado, I think, can put up points in this game, but they don't think they'll be able to keep pace. I'm going to leave the 21 alone, but I'm definitely taking Oregon straight up in this one. All right, Ole Miss, Alabama. This game started out Alabama as a 7-point favorite, which was surprising to me considering that all the quarterback struggles Alabama has had this year. This has actually gone down to 6.5. Let's go ahead and actually update that. And that makes sense to me, with all the issues they've had at quarterback, a 7-point favorite against a good Ole Miss team, an Ole Miss team that before the season I said would compete for the college football playoff. This line doesn't make sense to me. They put Jalen Milroe. They're going to start Jalen Milroe at quarterback, which is smart because he's much better than the other guys. Just as an athlete, he can make plays. He's a better weapon. He can hit some passes. I think it's overblown how poorly he played against Texas. He hit some plays too. I mean, he had them in that game. Texas is just better than them. So he's not as bad as people are trying to make it out to be. But he's not like the most accurate or greatest quarterback out there either. I've always said that Alabama had a huge downgrade at running back. It doesn't get talked about enough. These guys don't have running backs that are next level backs that are going to be, these guys are about to go for 250 or something like that on the ground against Ole Miss, man. It's not going to happen because they're not built like that. Ole Miss, so they've been a little bit disappointing for me. Despite the fact that they're 3-0, Jackson Dart is hitting big plays after big plays. I mean, he's balling. Jackson Dart is cooking this year right now. But the big thing for me is Quinshawn Judkins at running back. Man, this guy was a super freshman last year, and he hasn't got out of the garage this season. I don't know what's going on. And then against Alabama, it doesn't seem like it's a game where he's gonna like get it right. You know, um, he's much better though. He's a much better player than his stats will show you this year, than the way he's played this year will show you. But that's cause for concern for me. Defensively, you can move the ball on Ole Miss. I thought that coming into the season, um, but I thought their offense would be able to overshadow that. So far, that's what's happened. But you can move the ball on Ole Miss. You can move it well enough, either on the ground, especially through the air. You can hit plays on these guys. But in this game, man, I can't believe that they were open at 7. And this is a game, I said in the preseason, this is when I'm going to go against what I said. In the preseason, I said Florida State over Clemson, right, in the regular season game. This is one, man, where I'm going Ole Miss on the road. But let me be clear, I'm not so confident. I'm going with them straight up to win this game. But against the spread, I'm not so confident that they win it straight up. So I'm going Ole Miss with the 6.5 this season, or in this game. So I'm going Ole Miss with the 6.5 when it comes to against the spread, because I don't see how Alabama's beating this team by more than a touchdown. If you got the spread right here, then you're thinking that these guys, this is going to be in the fourth quarter, Bama's up double digits probably, or something like that. That's not happening, man. No, I don't see it. I can't see it. Jackson Dart is a much better quarterback at this point than Jalen Milroe is. And the Bama secondary got beat up on by Texas. Expect that to happen in this game. There's going to be Ole Miss is hitting plays. So I'm taking Ole Miss with a 6.5 in this one. And that's what I'm confident in. That's what I'm going against the spread in. But as far as overall record for these purposes, I am taking Ole Miss straight up. But I'm just not recommending you take them straight up. I'm recommending you take the 6.5. UCLA, Utah. Utah opened as a 5-point favorite, and now it's been bet down to 4. Oh, there was talk that the reason the line changed is because they believe that Cam Rising is going to play this week. They will need Cam Rising in this game because UCLA is not a team that Utah is going to beat. Actually, I'm sorry. This opened at 5. Then it went up to 6.5, or 6 or 6.5, when the news broke that Cam Rising would play. But now it's down to 4. So that's interesting. There might be something going on with whether or not Cam Rising is playing. I can tell you right now, if Cam Rising doesn't play in this game, UCLA is going to win this game. They've got a super freshman quarterback, Dante Moore, who's looked really good this year. He was in a battle with Ethan Garbers for the starting job. They both played in the opener against Coastal Carolina. Man, Garbers looked all right too, but he had 2 really bad picks in that game. But Dante Moore has just come on strong. He's a 5-star quarterback, and he's playing like it. Sometimes that doesn't happen. But nah, he's playing like a 5-star. UCLA offense is looking really explosive. They got a transfer from Cal named J. Michael Sturdivant. This is like an underrated pickup. This guy's an explosive wide receiver. Got wheels. A lot of those Bruin receivers got wheels, and he's making plays. They got a running back also transferred in, Carson Steele. Transferred from Ball State. He had like 1,500 at Ball State on the ground. Man, he runs hard. He runs big. He runs powerful. So without Cam Rising in this game to keep pace with UCLA's offense, man, there's no way you're gonna win with the walk-on quarterback and with Nate Johnson, the mobile QB whose passing is, they don't feel that confident in. You're not gonna win this game. Utah's defense is good. They're good enough to cause this freshman quarterback some issues. This game is on the road. So it's gonna be Dante's Moore first real stressful environment where he's got to play in, and that Utah fan base, they can get wild. I'm working off the assumption that Cam Rising is playing. And I think with Cam Rising playing, that there and one last note about UCLA, you can't their secondary, they can be had. They've been giving up some plays in the secondary. So you get a Cam Rising in there who can throw the ball much better than the backup quarterbacks. You're going to see Utah make some plays down the field, right? Losing Mike Bernard at running back really hurts, but Jaquindon Jackson stepped right in last week, or 2 weeks ago, and he looked really good against Baylor. So Utah still should have balance, and they should have a defense that should cause Dante Moore enough problems to where while UCLA is going to move the ball, he might have a few turnovers in this one, especially dealing with the crowd. So this is one that I'm going to take Utah, but I'm not doing the spread. I'm taking the Utah straight up. I'm not going to recommend doing a spread in this one because we don't know yet on Cam Rising, and you also don't know what Cam Rising is going to look like in his first game back. He's been practicing. He was a full participant in practice this week, so I think he's going to. I don't think there's going to be a Joe Burrow situation with Cincinnati where he's real rusty because Burrow didn't practice in camp. He's been practicing, so if he plays, he should be good. But it's best to see it first, right? So this is one I'm taking. Overall, I'm taking Utah, but I'm not going to do the 4. Next up, Oregon State, Washington State. This is a game where nobody's really talking about it, but both teams are ranked. Oregon State is mainly ranked because last year I believe they won 10 games. This year, Oregon State hasn't played anybody. San Jose State, UC Davis, San Diego State. And in their last game in San Diego State, they made some plays. Damian Martinez ran for over 100. He's probably the best player on their offense. But DJ Uiagalelei, I probably said his name wrong, sorry. But he was struggling out there, and he's somebody who can struggle passing the ball sometimes. They also, they haven't played against a team that really has an offense that can really test them. Against Washington State, they're going to be tested. Cameron Ward, man, he's going down the field. He's going down the field. He's making plays. Remember we saw them against Wisconsin. He was looking confident. He was hitting plays downfield. This wasn't just some typical, dink, dink, dink offense that you used to see with Washington State. And so they're going to put pressure on these Oregon State corners, and these Oregon State corners have been beaten. They got beaten by San Diego State wideouts, So they're going to put a lot of pressure on them. I think Washington State's front seven, which really, gave it to Wisconsin a couple weeks ago, and Wisconsin's got a really good running game. I think that they're going to cause problems for the Oregon State front. This is a game where I think it's going to be really close. So that 2.5 makes sense to me. Oh, sorry. This also opened at 2.5, and it's now 3. Oregon State favored by 3. So, but I think this is going to be a close game. And too close for comfort, too close for me, particularly because I think Washington State at home in Pullman, I think Cameron Ward is playing better than DJU. I think they're going to hit plays on him, and I think the Washington front seven can cause some problems for Oregon State. And I think Washington State can win this game straight up, but this isn't a game that I would recommend doing against the spread. I'm staying away from that one. Try to speed it along. Arkansas at LSU. LSU is, again, just like last year, they're hitting their groove after losing to Florida State in the opener. They've been cruising right along, just finished, whipping Mississippi State. Jaden Daniels is looking crisp. He's looking good. Malik Neighbors went for 2 bills, and these guys are looking good. They look good offensively. They look good defensively. And now they come back home for an Arkansas team that hasn't had Rocket Sanders in the last couple weeks. He hasn't played at running back. He's the best player on Arkansas. And while they got a good backup in A.J. Green, you typically want your best players, especially when you're playing a game like this. He's still listed as questionable. A.J. Jefferson's the kind of guy who can make some plays. He'll go downfield, so he will test that LSU secondary, which isn't that strong. But I don't think that Arkansas has any chance of winning this game. I think that LSU is clearly much better. I think I think Arkansas without Rocket Sanders is playing a man down, basically. These guys are coming off a loss to BYU, and they're really sloppy in that game. 14 penalties. Sloppy football. And I'm taking LSU in this one. I'm not going to do the spread in this one because 17.5 seems a bit high. Because KJ Jefferson is good enough to go downfield and hit some plays on these guys. But the Arkansas defense isn't going to be good enough to really slow these guys down. I mean, you know, 17.5. And yet again, I forgot to update. It's still 17.5. You know, this could be a 17-point game, you know, and then you lose on that one because LSU should win comfortably. But I'm going to go ahead and stick to just going straight up on that one. Iowa, Penn State. Iowa, just like last year, they're led by their defense, just like seems like every year. Their offense seems even worse to me. Their offense is absolutely horrible. They beat Western Michigan last week 41-10, and they only had 239 yards of offense. And you know, the running game got going against these guys, but it's Western Michigan. You know, they were 5 for 16 on third down. Like, you're 5 for 16 against Western Michigan. That means Cade McNamara, quarterback, he's not playing well. And I never thought he was that great to begin with. So this one, to me, you know, Iowa can't score that many points in this game. So it's basically, if they're going to cover, it's up to Penn State. Can Penn State score enough to beat Iowa by 15 or more? Penn State was looking shaky last week against Illinois. It wasn't a crisp performance by Alar or the running game. It seemed like everybody, it was a Penn State performance, man. They have a game like that, but in the past, they used to lose that game. So they beat Illinois 30-13, but, you know, it wasn't the greatest performance. I expect a bounce back. I'm actually, even though I don't like you in big spreads, I'm actually laying the 14.5 because I don't think Iowa is going to score. Hell, I don't see how Iowa can score more than 7 points in this game. You know, so Penn State, while Iowa's defense has been playing lights out, they're certainly good enough to drop at least 21 to 30 points in this game, I believe. And I'm going to take Penn State, and I'm laying the 14.5. On the Texas-Baylor, Texas is coming off a shaky, obviously letdown performance against Wyoming. They won 31-10, but this was a tight game going into the fourth quarter. But it's a letdown. They just beat Bama. You know, you had to see this letdown coming, right? So I'm kind of throwing that one out. I think Queen Ears is going to bounce back. I think Xavier Worthy and Jonathan Brooks, I think all these guys are going to bounce back offensively and look a lot crisper against a Baylor team that's, again, Sawyer Robinson, I've said it before, he's just not up to snuff right now at quarterback. I don't know if they're going with a QB change, but as far as I've seen, he'll be starting this week. He played against LIU last week, and he only had 100. LIU is Long Island University, and he had only 113 yards passing. Less than 50% completion. They ran at will, but they're not going to run at will against Texas. So this offense is probably going to be shut down cold. I see Texas winning. I see Texas covering. So we'll be doing that one as well. And finally, game of the week. I actually haven't checked, but I'm pretty sure game day is in oh, by the way, this is going up to 16. I still see them covering the 16, though. I'm going to go ahead. I'm still taking Texas and laying that at 16. And the game of the week, game day is probably in South Bend. Huge game. This game started out at 3. It looks like people are the action's going on at Ohio State as it's now up to 3.5. And it makes sense to me. I like Notre Dame's Sam Hartman at quarterback. I think he's been really good. He's been crisp. He's been he's been spreading the ball around to the running backs and tight ends. But I don't think any receivers have really stepped up to really look like serious weapons for them against an Ohio State secondary that, you know, could give up some plays. That's probably their weakest unit of the team. But I don't think Notre Dame has the weapons to really test those guys. I also don't think their running game is really going to get going against Ohio State. And we saw Ohio State, Kyle McCord finally got off. It was a bad team, Western Kentucky. But he threw for 300, 3 touchdowns. He was hitting off Marvin Harrison. These guys put up 63 points. They finally look like, okay, we got something now. We know what we're doing. I'm taking Ohio State in this one, and I'm taking Ohio State to cover. Sorry, I know this video went a little longer than usual, but a lot more games to do, so, you know, more to talk about. But to recap, I'm taking as against the spread, I'm taking Clemson money line. I'm taking Texas A&M and laying the 9. I'm taking Ole Miss with the +6.5. And I'm taking Iowa laying the 14.5, laying the 16 with Texas, and laying the 3.5 with Ohio State. That's a lot of games. That's 6 games against the spread. 6 against the spread calls I picked. Let's see how it works out for me. If you like the content, please like, subscribe, follow, all of that. I'll be posting my YouTube handle up here on your screen in a few seconds. And hope you guys have a good day. And as I always have to say, this is for entertainment purposes. I'm not condoning gambling, but if you do, gamble responsibly. And if you're just going with my picks, understand that all responsibility is on you. And but if you want to follow my picks, feel free. All right, let's go get this money. Good luck.